As you sit wherever you are, there is the simple fact of this moment. Breathing is happening, sensation is here, sounds appear and disappear. Thoughts move through the mind. Perhaps you notice that even before you try to change anything, this moment is already complete. There is nothing missing from the isness of now. The mind may say something should be different, but if you look more closely, you may sense that life itself is not arguing with this moment. Life is simply here. Let us bring attention first to this basic aliveness. You do not need to visualize anything. You do not need to create a special state. You are simply allowing what is already present to be as it is. Notice a single in-breath, then the out-breath. There is a quiet rhythm. There is a sense that you are aware of the breath. The breath comes and goes. Awareness does not come and go. Perhaps you can sense that what you are at the deepest level is not the breath, not the thoughts, not the sensations, but that which knows they are here. This knowing presence is very simple. It does not say, I am this or I am that. It is like a quiet space in which everything comes and goes. When a thought arises now, just notice it. It might say, I understand this, or I don't understand. It might say, this is helpful, or this is not helpful. Just notice that the thought wants to be believed. It wants to become you. You are invited not to follow the thought into a story. You simply see it, a thought, appearing, disappearing. What happens when you do not immediately take a position, when you do not say, this is good or this is bad? There can be a small space, a gap, in which you sense yourself as the awareness of thought rather than the content of thought. In that space, there is a quiet strength. You may notice that the mind has a certain momentum. It thinks about the past. It imagines the future. It wants to fix, to achieve, to be right, to be seen. Most people live as if they are this restless movement. They say, this is me, this is who I am. But if you look now in direct experience, you may see something different. You can notice the restlessness. You can feel the pull toward past and future, and yet you are here able to observe it. In that simple, clear observing, you are not the restlessness. You are the space in which it appears. This is where the sense of ego begins to be seen. The ego is not a thing, not a solid entity. It is a pattern. It is a set of repetitive thoughts, emotions, and reactions that say, this is me, this is my life, this is what I need, this is what I must defend. The ego looks to the past and collects stories. It says, this happened to me, this is my trauma, this is my success, this is what they did. Then it looks to the future and says, I must get there. I must become somebody. I must not fail. It lives in time. The strange thing is that your actual life never happens in time. It always happens now. Even when you think about the past, the thinking is happening now. Even when you imagine the future, the imagining arises now. So we can say your life situation is made of time, stories, and mental images. But your life, in its essence, is this present awareness. It is the simple sense of being. You can touch this directly now. If you say internally, very softly, I am, and you leave it at that, not adding anything, no this or that after it, then there is just the sense of being, not being this person or that person, just being. Perhaps you feel a slight spaciousness in that, a relaxation. The ego always wants to add something to I am. It wants to say, I am right, or I am wronged, or I am better, or I am worse. Without these additions, there is a stillness. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts arise. True freedom begins the moment you realize you are not the voice in your head. You may still hear the voice, but it no longer defines what you are. Notice, for example, if a thought appears now, like I am doing this right or I am not doing this right, you do not have to fight with the thought. You do not have to believe it. Just notice, there it is, a movement within awareness. This simple noticing is the beginning of disidentification from the egoic mind. You allow thoughts to be. You do not follow them into a narrative. You do not give them more energy than they need. They come and go in the light of awareness, like clouds moving across the sky.
In that allowing, you may begin to sense the quiet strength of presence. Presence does not shout, it does not insist. It is always here, gentle, open, available. When attention rests in presence, life simplifies. Now let us bring awareness a little more deeply into the body, not as a mental idea of the body, but as a living field of sensation. Perhaps you can feel your hands from within. Not by looking at them, but by sensing the inner aliveness. There may be a subtle tingling or vibration, a sense that
the hands are not just objects, but living energy. The same with your feet, your face, your chest, your belly. If you like, you can take a moment now to scan gently through the body from within without trying to change anything, just sensing. As you do this, notice that thoughts may become a little quieter. They may still come, but they are less central. The center of gravity begins to shift from thinking to being. This is the doorway to inner stillness. Inner stillness does not mean that nothing moves. There may still be sounds, sensations, even emotions. But there is a deeper sense that something within you is perfectly still, untouched by what happens. From this stillness, we can look more clearly at the workings of the ego. The ego loves to be right. It loves to compare. It loves to say me and mine. If you watch carefully, you will see how often a thought tries to place you at the center of some mental drama. This person treated me unfairly. This situation should not be like this. If only they understood me. This creates an inner tension, a feeling that something is constantly wrong, either with you or with others or with the world. You may notice also a certain subtle pleasure in it. The ego enjoys complaint. It enjoys being the victim as much as it enjoys being the hero, because in either case it gets to be the main character. When this is unconscious, it creates suffering. You feel heavy, you feel separate, you feel at war with life. When it becomes conscious, there is already some freedom. You see the pattern, you recognize, that is the ego's voice, that is the old story. By seeing it, you are no longer fully in its grip. This seeing is not aggressive. We are not trying to destroy the ego. We are simply shining the light of awareness on it. In that light, the identification begins to soften. The ego would like to use even spiritual teaching to strengthen itself. It says, now I will become the most awakened person, or I will get rid of my ego. You may notice the subtle arrogance or subtle tension in that movement. There is nothing to fight, nothing to get rid of, only something to see. When you see it, it loses its solidity. Now let us bring attention more deeply into the present moment, not as a concept, but as a direct experience. This sound, right now, this sensation, this breath. If a thought says this is too simple, just notice the thought and return to the simplicity. The mind likes complexity. Presence is simple. You may ask yourself quietly, is there any problem in this moment, right now, if I do not think about it? You may discover that problems only exist when you enter into mental time. When the mind tells stories about what should have happened, what must happen, what could happen, this does not mean that practical challenges do not exist. They do. But there is a difference between dealing with a situation in the clarity of the present moment and carrying a heavy mental story about it in your head. The more attention rests in the now, the less unnecessary suffering there is. Suffering in the psychological sense is largely resistance to what is. The mind says no to the present moment. It says, not this, anything but this. Allow yourself to feel for a moment how that inner no feels in the body. There may be tightness in the chest, tension in the shoulders, a clenching in the belly. This is the felt sense of resistance. Now imagine that instead of saying no to this moment, there is a gentle yes. Not a mental yes that tries to like what it cannot like. Rather, a deeper allowing, a sense of this is what is here, let it be so for now. Notice what happens in the body as you allow. Perhaps there is a slight softening, a little more space around the discomfort. The situation outside may not change immediately, but your relationship to it changes. This is acceptance. Acceptance is not passivity. It is not resignation. It is not saying that what is happening is good or bad. It is simply aligning yourself with the reality of this moment instead of arguing with it. From acceptance, intelligent action can arise. When you are no longer caught in internal resistance, you see more clearly what needs to be done, if anything. Sometimes action is needed. Sometimes no action is needed. In either case, there is less inner conflict. The quiet strength of allowing is in this. You no longer waste energy fighting with what already is. You remain rooted in presence, and from that presence, life moves through you in a more harmonious way. Now let us look at what can be called the pain body. The pain body is the accumulated emotional pain from the past that lives in the body. It can be personal and also collective. Sometimes it is dormant, sometimes it is active. You may notice that at certain times a small trigger in the present seems to awaken a large reaction. Someone says a few words, and suddenly there is a surge of anger, sadness, or fear. The reaction is out of proportion to the situation. This is usually the pain body being activated. When the pain body is active, it seeks more pain. It looks for reasons to be upset. It wants to feed on conflict and drama. The ego and the pain body work together. The ego supplies the story, and the pain body supplies the emotional charge. If this is unconscious, you are taken over by it. You say things and do things that later you may regret. You feel that something got into you. In a sense, that is true. A pattern took over. But again, when there is awareness, something different happens. You can notice the pain body is active now. You feel the emotional intensity in the body. You do not deny it. You do not justify it. You do not act it out. You simply allow it to be felt as energy. This is not always comfortable, but it is simple. You feel the heaviness, the heat, the pressure, without adding a story. The pain body survives through identification and through mental commentary. When you feel it purely as sensation, and you do not feed it with thoughts, it begins to dissolve. It may come in waves. It may intensify for a while. But as you stay present with it, without resistance, it can no longer sustain its self in the same way. So even emotional pain becomes an opportunity to deepen presence. You are discovering that what you are is not the pain. It is the space in which the pain arises. This space is untouched. In relationships, the pain body and the ego often play out their patterns. You may have noticed how quickly reactivity can arise with those who are close to you. A small comment, a certain tone of voice, and suddenly there is an argument. Blame, defensiveness, withdrawal. The ego loves to find fault in others. It says, "You should not be like this. You should make me feel safe. You should confirm my identity." The other person's ego is usually doing the same. If both are unconscious, the relationship becomes a field of mutual attack and defense, or of mutual withdrawal, sometimes both. Suffering increases. When one person in the relationship begins to become more present, a new possibility arises. You may notice the impulse to react. You may feel the pain body activate. But there is also a sense, I do not have to go along with this. Instead of immediately speaking from the pain body, you pause. You feel the energy in the body. You take a breath. Perhaps you say nothing for a moment. In that pause, you are not suppressing. You are simply staying present. From here, you may respond in a new way, or you may see that no response is needed. Sometimes silence is the most loving action. Presence in relationships does not mean that you become passive or that you allow unhealthy behavior to continue. It means that your response comes from a place that is not reactive. You can set clear boundaries but without hatred. You can say no but without inner violence. As presence grows, you begin to see the other person not just as their ego and pain body, but as consciousness itself, perhaps mostly unconscious of itself. This brings a natural compassion, not a concept of compassion, but a felt sense. They are suffering and acting from that suffering. You do not need to fix them. You simply remain present. Your presence itself is already a contribution. Now, let us gently bring attention again to the inner body. You may close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or leave them open with a soft gaze. Notice the aliveness in your hands, in your feet, in your chest. As you stay with this sense of inner aliveness, thoughts may slow down. There is a feeling of inhabiting the body from within, rather than looking at it from the outside. This brings you out of the head and into the present. You can also notice the space around the body. There is the body, and there is the space in which the body appears. The room, the air, the silence. Everything is held in awareness. Allow yourself to rest as this awareness, not as an idea, but as a direct, simple knowing of being here. You do not need to reach for it. You are already it. Spiritual awakening is often imagined as something far away, something that will happen one day after many practices and efforts, but what we are pointing to is very immediate. Awakening is the recognition of the dimension of being that is always here, behind, and within every experience. It is the recognition that you are not limited to the form identity, name, history, body, roles. These are part of your outer life, but not your deepest identity. Right now, before you think about who you are, there is a sense of being. That is already the doorway. The mind may say, "This is too easy. It cannot be this." Notice that thought as just another thought. The essence of awakening is a shift in identity from the passing forms to the timeless awareness in which they appear. This does not mean that forms are denied. You still play your roles, you still take care of your practical life, but there is a lightness, a sense that you are not trapped in those roles. You are not reduced to your successes or failures. You are not confined by your story. In this recognition, a quiet joy may arise, not excitement, not emotional intensity, a deeper joy that comes from simply being aligned with what is. You may notice that when you do not resist the present moment, there is a natural peace. Even if the situation is challenging, the inner field can remain still. The storm may be outside. Inside there is a calm space. This does not require effort. It is more a relaxation into what you already are. The effort belongs to the ego. It always wants to become, to attain, to improve. Here we are not trying to become anything. We are simply recognizing being. As you rest in that, thoughts continue, sensations continue, life continues. But something fundamental has shifted. You no longer look to the future for yourself. You no longer look to the past to define yourself. You live more and more from the presence of this moment. If the mind says, "What about my problems? What about my plans? What about my healing?" you can see that too as a movement of thought. You can attend to what needs attention in the practical sense. But you do not give it your entire identity. Every time you notice that you have been lost in thought, that noticing is already a step back into awareness. You do not need to judge yourself for having been lost. You simply return. In this way, life itself becomes your teacher. Every moment invites you back to presence. Every reaction, every discomfort, every joy is an opportunity to notice, am I aware or am I lost in the story? Slowly, gently, the sense of being awareness rather than the content of awareness becomes more stable. There may still be waves on the surface, but you rest more as the depth. As we come toward the end of these words, there is no real end to what we are pointing to. The words are only temporary forms. What they point to is timeless. You can let the words fall away now and simply notice what remains. There is still breathing, there is still sensing, there is still awareness of all of this. Can you feel the quiet strength of allowing right now, allowing your mind to be as it is, allowing your body to be as it is, allowing this moment to be as it is? Nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be taken away. There is just this. Rest here for a few moments, without seeking, without reaching, simply aware, simply present. In this simple presence, life is complete.